trial by fire, like jump in and just do it. I'm not going to bother you on vacation. Have fun. We'll talk when you get back. You could get good at the things you don't enjoy, but you're still going to be miserable doing them. But that's a lot of work to maintain a business like that. And you're pumping a lot of money out. And if things go south, there's a lot bigger risk there. They want connection because we all feel more and more disconnected. I would say, like, don't go into it thinking that it's going to be something that's going to write everything for you, because it's not good like that. It's more of like, how can you get feedback from it and then develop your own stuff? We tend to attract people that are like us.
Hey, can I ask a little favor? If you've gotten any value out of the Coach Kettles podcast, if you've enjoyed the guests that we've had on, the simple and free way to show that support is to hit that subscribe button. And my commitment to you is to go out and find the best coaches, do the best interviews, pull out the tips, the tricks, so that you can create the coaching business of your dreams. So if you wouldn't mind, hit that subscribe button. That allows us to continue doing what we do. Have a great day. What is up, my friend? Welcome to another episode of the Coach Catalyst podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Whitwer, and we are officially in season 4, and I'm super excited about the guest that I had on today. His name is Jeb Johnston, and his company is Food on the Mind. Now, Jeb's journey is a little bit different than a few others in this season. Jeb has really built a business around a lifestyle. He's built a business where he is the operator, he is the practitioner, and that is how he enjoys it. Now, he's been able, over the course of a short period of time, about 3 years, almost 10x what he charges for one-to-one coaching. And so he's been able to create an incredible business that serves him, serves his family, and allows him to do the work that he loves. So if you are a practitioner, if you're a coach that really wants to do the work, you can build an incredible business that serves you. So I hope you catch it all on the flip side with my man, Jeb Johnston. Jeb, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Dude, I'm super stoked to have you on. So just to give some context for people that are listening, you were at our Super Coach Summit and you were on our panel, and we're going to definitely get into some of the stuff that you talked about on the panel, kind of what you've gotten into coaching and what your niche is now. But this entire season is all about kind of helping the online coach really give insight into coaches that are having a lot of success in this world. And you're definitely one of them. And much of today is about kind of chronicling that journey a little bit. So let's go back to the beginning and let's kind of talk about how you even got into the industry. Was this something you were always passionate about since the beginning, or was it kind of a career turn at some point?
A big time career turn. Now, I will say that I always had an interest in kind of more nutrition necessarily than fitness. I played sports growing up, the normal, kind of American kid, growing up in the 80s. Yeah. But I was never really into it. First of all, I never saw it as a career path. I'm 46 years old. When I was graduating high school, if I had said I wanted to become a personal trainer, granted, I was wanting to become a musician, which might have been worse in their eyes, but a personal trainer was not an option as a career choice really at that time, or people didn't think of it as one. So I went to college for music. I ended up working I became a bartender because I was a songwriter, and I ran some nightclubs for a little bit, and then I became a hairdresser. I was a celebrity hairdresser in New York for about 11 years. I worked on fashion shoots. I worked with supermodels. I worked with celebrities in a really fancy salon down in the Meatpacking District. And we talk about kind of pivotal moments. I began working out with a friend of mine. I didn't even start lifting weights until I was in my 30s. And I got into it, also into jiu-jitsu around that same time. And I met my friend Sean Heisen, who was an editor at Muscle & Fitness and Men's Fitness. And we became training partners, became really, really close friends. And then one night I was out having ice cream sundaes with him and Ben Bruno. And Bruno was like, hey, why don't you just train people? You know all this stuff. You're really into it. You seem passionate about it. And I was like, I'd never even really thought about it. And that was kind of that moment. Now I look back and I had, one of my struggles in life was that with alcohol. And I was in a rehab one time and said to my wife, I was like, I think I'd like to be an alcohol counselor. I'd really like to help people in this pursuit. And I never really did, but I think that was actually the spark. And then training, nutrition, et cetera, kind of led me into what I do currently.
So did you start with, did you take Bruno's advice and start training people or?
Yeah, well, he graciously said hey, go get a certificate. I don't
Right.
have one, but you'll probably need one for insurance and to get a job. And I will set you up because he knows everyone in New York City, right? He went to college there. He
Right.
knew everybody in that field. I ended up not taking him up on the offer and just kind of in my normal pursuit, like went and kind of started my own business, working within a CrossFit gym. I taught some CrossFit classes and took on clients, but yeah, I started in personal training. I ended up opening my own private studio in New York, and working out of that. And I found that nutrition seemed to be a bigger lever and also something I was way more interested in. I was also way better at that. I started to learn. I started meeting so many really great trainers that I realized I'm not very good at this. I was making a great living, but I was
Hmm.
not on their level at all. Um, but I was in that nutrition space, and I ended up doing more nutrition stuff. Met my friend Mike Dola, who owned Stronger You at the time, and ended up going and working for them, and really just in that. And I was so busy that I had to close down my studio and only work online at that point, which was a huge transition.
So let's kind of unpack a little bit about the why you feel like you were better at nutrition. Do you think it was just kind of part of your background and your ability
Yeah,
to communicate, which kind of led you to just be better at that aspect?
yeah. Well, because being a being a great trainer does require some communication skills, etc. But the nuts and bolts of it become so important. Whereas most of nutrition coaching, there's obviously you need to know the science behind it. You need to understand, interactions if you really want to be great. But to really affect people's lives, you started to realize that man, so much of this stuff is not about the nuts and bolts.
Hmm.
So much of this is about really affecting behavior change. And I just found it way more interesting. It was, again, I think I got into training and being a hairdresser, being a bartender, these were all people facing
Right.
jobs. And I think I got into it because I'm so fascinated by the human mind. And I felt like in the nutrition coaching, I got more into that behavioral aspect and I got more insight into the human mind
Right.
than I did in the training on the training floor. The training floor was fun, don't get me wrong. But when I went to my private studio and I wasn't around my buddies and we weren't like,
Right.
I didn't have that locker room kind of thing, it lost a little bit of its luster.
So how long did you do the studio thing for?
Well, I had my studio for probably 3 years. So prior to that, I was training people out of CrossFit gyms for probably about three there.
Okay. Were there any like certifications or books in the nutrition world that were kind of pivotal in your kind of like interest in keeping you going?
I I no, I think it was more like kind of private mentorship.
Okay.
Again, most of my careers, all of the careers I've had that I've done well at, really were driven by a mentorship model. Yes, there's that education gain for books, and I still read a ton of books and things on more on behavior change than anything now, and that's where I'd say most of my influence comes from. But in terms of courses, I really think the precision nutrition course was fantastic because it did go through kind of the physiology stuff, but then it also really dove into the psychological aspect in the other half.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so I thought that balance was really great. But in terms of like basic nutrition courses, or if someone wants to go get their, just get a basic nutrition course, I think that a lot of them are good. I'll plug my friend Jen Broxnerman's one because I've been talking to her a lot lately, and I really like the work she's doing. She also spoke at Coach Catalyst Summit, obviously too.
Yeah, she's great. My team is actually doing her cert right now.
Awesome,
They're
awesome.
going through it and they really enjoy it. Yeah, it's awesome. You mentioned this thing about private mentorship. I mean, I think
Mhm.
this is super powerful, and I think a lot of coaches kind of would like to do something like that. Like, how do you even go about doing kind of like the mentorship thing? Was it like you kind of met somebody and was like, hey, can we do this informal thing? Or was it more of a formal process? How did you go about it?
I mean, this is literally every one of my careers. When I was in hair, I literally found who I thought the best hairdresser I started in DC and then I went to New York
Hmm.
and I just pestered them and said, I'll do anything. Like, I'll clean the floors, I'll clean the hair out of the drains. I don't care. I want to be around you. just to
Mhm.
learn. And then when I got into nutrition, obviously, I met Mike Dole and Michael Essie, who were the CEO and CFO of Stronger You, and I just on the sly sent them an application video and didn't say anything because we were friends. I didn't want to hurt our friendship, but that got me into kind of being in that world more, meeting more people. And when I knew that, I had plenty of people around me who were, brilliant in the nutrition space. Um, early on, friends like Mike T. Nelson, Spencer Nadolski, like people who really know their stuff. But then I found that my bottleneck wasn't understanding macro breakdowns. My bottleneck was with clients was understanding psychology. So I tried to go up for a seminar that Tony Gentlecore and his wife Lisa Lewis were having. It I think it got canceled or something, but then I saw that she was speaking at a conference in Kansas City. So I flew out to that conference, cornered her, and I said, "I want to work with you." And she said, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I want to work. I don't care what it takes." She's like, I don't do that. I don't coach people. I don't like that's not my thing." She's like, I'm a psychologist." And I was like, "Okay, we'll figure it out. Can I book a time with you?" And we figured it out. And that was, I think, almost 7 years ago. And I've met with her every 2 weeks since then. And it's changed my life, both professionally and personally. Um, and then there's the more informal ones, like I mentioned, Mike T. Nelson. He's become a close personal friend. It's like having that guy on speed dial. Ben House, I went and did a course of his, kind of same thing. I went to a seminar because I knew he was going to be there, and I was like, "Man, you get it." I was like, "I need to learn from you," and I took one of his courses, ended up flying down to Costa Rica for one of his events, went to a couple more, and met a huge network through that. And it just as you kind of develop these relationships, and you approach someone and ask them for that help,
Mhm.
you get exposed to that network, and there's this weird thing that starts to happen where you go from being this mentee student to starting to be peers with these people, and then the world just it just blows wide open.
So, I mean, you're just willing to kind of put yourself out there, right? And willing to ask for help.
Yeah, I mean, what I tell people is like what I say is like, I'll clean floors. It doesn't matter what you want me to do. Like it's
Mhm.
it's the for people old enough, it's the Mr. Miyagi thing. Like you're just gonna
Right.
go like paint fences or whatever it is, but you have to be willing to do that, I think. Because you have to show that humility. You have to show that like
Right.
I'm willing to learn.
Yeah, I mean, that was the term that came into my head was you're approaching the relationship with a level of humility, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes in order to kind of absorb this information.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
love
that's been
that.
always my mentality of everything is like when I start to feel like maybe I think of myself a little bit too importantly, that I'm getting off track.
Right. So how long, I mean, how long have you been a nutrition coach? If we kind of go back to maybe when you started working with Stronger You to now, like
Um,
what's that time frame?
when did I think I started working Stronger You in 2017, maybe.
Okay.
I was doing nutrition with all my clients before
Okay.
that. Prior to that, I had done precision nutrition a couple years prior. So, and then I had always kind of like just helped clients with it. It was just an interest. Um, but formally, just doing that was
Right.
2017.
Okay. So, I mean, we're going on a good probably 7 to 9 years worth of the nutrition coaching.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, so you decided, so what made you decide to go to Stronger You? Was it more of like, I want to learn from these guys and they're building something really cool and I want to be part of it, versus doing your own thing and just kind of like, specializing in nutrition coaching?
It was literally just like I had a podcast at the time, had them on. We all went to a Rangers game afterwards, and like the vision that they had and the values that they held and the desire they had to help people was just like contagious. And I
Hmm.
was like, I don't care in what capacity. I was like, I want to be a part of this. And I think we started talking. It was about me putting together a fitness program for him, actually. And then I was like, let me just get into the orbit here and then figure it out.
Hmm.
And nutrition coaching was, where it went.
And was this in the early days of Stronger You?
Earlier, there wasn't a lot of coaches. Like they were doing well. Don't get me
Right.
wrong. It got to the point where I had to stop taking clients for about 6 months to let my client load drop off just so I could manage my life because it was insane. I think at the peak I had 250 clients and it was a lot.
All right, so you had 250 clients. How are we coaching 200? Because it was just you, right? You don't have like assistant coaches or a team.
No, no. So like there was people that could only handle 25 clients. I'm very lucky in that I have and unlucky in that I have kind of a weird like steel trap brain that I read something and it just sticks. So I just knew what clients had said the week before. And so it wasn't like this thing where I had to go and like research. I knew what they were doing. I knew what they're going through. And we had like kind of weekly check-ins and it was all text-based. It was asynchronous. There wasn't a huge, there wasn't a lot of touch points and there wasn't like the involvement that I have now with clients where I could, there's no possible way. I mean, it just couldn't happen now. But the way we did kind of asynchronous, I remembered everything with clients. And so it actually made it pretty simple. And I mean, I have clients now that I worked with in 2017, and I can still tell you about our first like chat together. So, those things just stuck out. And so it made it kind of easy for me in that capacity.
So when you were dealing with that much, were you kind of batching things or were you just kind of like constantly in your messenger sending messages back and forth?
So I've been really like I remember talking to other coaches like, how do you manage I'm like, okay, well, what are your work hours? And they'd be like, I don't know. I like kind of get up. I'm like, okay, well, no. Like I get up and my day starts at 9:00 and maybe 9 till 12, I'll be answering, check-ins and then, I'll eat lunch and work out. And then from, 3 to 5, it'll be, or 3 to 4, it would be, answering messages and then back into check-ins. And we had check-ins scheduled for, every day of the week. So some people would check in on Monday. So I could have that spread out throughout the week. And then, I think at the time we didn't have because we didn't have an app yet. So everything was spreadsheets and text message. I'm one that I hate email. But I will text anytime. Like, I don't know why email stresses me out. Give me a text. And so if people text me, I'd be texting. And granted, yeah, I was texting people at 11 at night but I didn't mind. I was very career focused. I don't have kids. My wife, she traveled a ton for work at the time. So I had a lot of opportunity that it was fine. And it didn't take away from my life at all. So I never felt like there was this need to set some kind of like boundaries or anything.
Right.
Whereas nowadays, I kind of close up at 6. I'll answer messages if people send them to me because again, I don't mind. I actually really like talking about this stuff. But yeah, it was absolutely setting like you have a work day and this is what you do throughout your day. And it looks like anyone else's work day, except just longer.
Right.
My favorite thing about Coach Catalyst.
One of the things I love most about Coach Catalyst.
There are lots of things I love about Coach Catalyst.
And the reason why I love Coach Catalyst is that
the accountability off the back of that
is simplicity.
The support is amazing.
It allows me to give so much of me to my clients.
It's the drip feeding of content.
I can schedule lessons for my clients in advance.
Game changer for freeing up time.
It gives me my time back.
It's so simple and so easy.
Hi, I'm Kane, the founder of Coach Catalyst, the #1 accountability and communication software on the market today. We help coaches just like you keep their clients accountable and scale their business beyond what they've ever been able to do before. So if that sounds like something you want, let's take a look at how we can help. So Coach Catalyst was built on the 4 C's of coaching. Those are content, communication, community, and consistency. So for content, you need to go beyond just workouts and deliver the whole experience for the client so they get the results they deserve. For communication, you need to own your communication. If you don't own the communication, you don't own the client. So make sure you stop texting clients and use a centralized platform. For communities, get off of Facebook groups and take ownership over your social group with Coach Catalyst communities. And for consistency, the foundation of all results for clients, we took the best-selling book Atomic Habits and built all these fundamentals right within our app that's going to guarantee to get your clients the best results possible. If you want to start using the 4 C's with your clients, content, connection, community, and consistency, make sure you run over to Coach Catalyst and start a free trial today.
So, I mean, I think that was a good example of maybe one thing that's changed or that's evolved in your coaching process is maybe having a little bit more haphazard to now having a fairly structured or a loosely structured workday. Are there any other kind of things that have evolved for your coaching practice where at one time when you were a young coach, you were doing it this way and now you think about it differently?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's my coaching practice is like 180 from what it was then. Asynchronous communication, like I do message with clients occasionally, but I do with my so when I set up with client now, it's much more intensive, much more hands on. So there are deliverables. I have a entire lesson plan dedicated for people so they can learn kind of about the things that we're working on. I deliver videos weekly. We have little habits that we'll work on, but we also have a phone call when we're starting off. We have a call every week. And then we kind of move to biweekly. And then if, they kind of move on, either they'll, can move on to work with a coach of mine who that'll be more like video type check-ins, Loom type thing, or we could do like a once a month kind of, check-in call. But it's much more because I'm working. What I found working with Stronger You was one of the running jokes was I would tell the people that booked our clients, give me the clients no one else wants. Like that's fun for me. Like I want the challenging clients who nothing ever works for. They're never happy. Like give me the challenge. And I found that through that, those people were not as receptive to that asynchronous type of communication. They really needed a face-to-face, little deeper involvement. That also required, having the ability to attract those clients and the cost.
What do you think? I mean, what do you think gravitated you towards those types of clients? Are you just like, I want the challenge because that'll help me get better as a coach, or something else?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's something like wrong with me psychologically that I want to do that. I mean, I think that there are people like me. There are people that kind of live in their head a little bit. Again, I said earlier, I had a problem with alcohol my whole life. I was in rehab multiple times. I went to jail, like all these things. And I saw these parallels in those clients with food, right? And I learned that it wasn't about food. It was about their inability to kind of regulate their emotions, to deal with stress, their relationship issues. And so we tend to attract people that are like us. And I joke, like, when I do talks or anything, I usually get on stage and the first thing I always say is like, I'm sure you can tell by looking at me that I work with, middle-aged women on emotional eating. I'm covered in tattoos. I'm bald.
Right.
That doesn't look, and that was not going to be my niche. Like I wasn't, but that's who came to me. And I think we attract people who probably have similarities. They're people, women are very well educated. They're really into learning. They're really into understanding the why. I do work with guys too. I work, a decent amount of guys. It's just a little different dynamic. But yeah, and so I wanted the challenge, but I also, as corny and as cliched as it is, I want to help people. And I found that the people who were really successful in like that kind of asynchronous thing were people that probably would have been successful with anyone. I mean, I worked with some people that saw crazy changes, and I would love to take credit for that, but it wasn't me. They were just like, some people just hit it and were like, oh, this is all I have to do, and then lost 100 pounds. And it was like, yeah, that's it.
Oh, those are the best. Yeah. But so you said this kind of niche almost kind of chose you. Was that just like an evolution of, hey, I find that I'm having a lot of success with these people? Because at Stronger You, my guess is you got to work with such a wide range of people from young, old, right? All different aspects. And so did you just find that you kind of gravitated, or those people had the most types of like success with you, people that were kind of dealing with emotional eating and some of those behaviors?
I think it's not that they had I think we also have to quantify success, right? Because I think success in that world, so back then, and through no fault of our own, I think we really did view that like, oh, if you can do this macro thing, it's going to be like flexible dieting. It's going to give you all the success. You're going to lose a bunch of weight and you'll be able to keep it off forever because it's non-restrictive. As we know, everyone turned it into somehow being a restrictive diet, right? So it ended up the same things were happening, the same recidivism, the same yo-yos. And so I saw the people that were not seeing success there and helping them to redefine success, right? Starting to work on the things that, like I always look at it, like we spend so much time getting people to diet and then move them into maintenance. Whereas my view became almost reverse, is like, how can we work on all the things that are going to be important in maintenance first, develop that base. And then when we get to a period of safety, because most of these women in particular, we're dieting, we're doing all these things out of fear, we're out of self-loathing, not compassion. And so can we develop that first and then move into this more targeted intentional weight loss, if that's even what we need? Because a lot of times clearing up these other issues would unintentionally lead to weight loss. And so I think in the terms of like helping the people to find life satisfaction was where I derived my sense of purpose versus again, the people who I could just throw some macros at and lost weight.
Right.
I was happy for them and I was really proud of the work they did and I was amazed by it, but it didn't really fulfill me because I wasn't providing, I guess, what it is that I felt that I had to give.
Well, let's stay with that for a second here. So you kind of mentioned about helping people understand maintenance first. So how do you, like, someone came to lose weight, how do you convince them that, like, hey, we may not actually lose weight right away, or maybe just a little bit, and like help keep them engaged in the process?
Well, the first question is, have you ever lost weight in the past?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, a dozen times or 15 times. I've been dieting since I was 12 years old. And now I'm 48. Okay. So we know that you can do that just fine. We don't need to rush that. You know that you can do one of these crazy diets at any point and you can lose 15, 20, 30 pounds. The problem is that you're sick and tired of that because it hasn't, because you're either, managing being overweight and being constantly obsessed with food, or you're dieting and constantly obsessed with food. So the thing we want to actually change is the obsession with food, is that food noise or whatever that is.
Is it?
Is that something that you would like to work on? And generally, it's like the cliched 5 whys or whatever is like getting to the why. So when we start to understand the why, it's like, okay, well, can you be okay with working on these things and maybe not seeing the quick result that you're used to, knowing that that is always an option. And at any point in time, we can do that. But would you like to work on this? And maybe they say, no, I want to work on weight loss. Cool. Let's go ahead and work on that then. And if it works, great. Everyone's happy. The thing is it generally doesn't, right? The old patterns resume and it's like, okay, well, we tried that. Would you like to try something different now? And that's really and part of it is my messaging. Like, it's very clear what I put out there, whether it be through emails or social media or all, that we're going to work on everything except for that thing. I equate it to like the sun, right? Like the sun's always going to be there. But if we never realize the influence that the planets and the stars and the rest of the universe has on the sun, and we only focus on the sun's impact on all that stuff, we're going to go blind. And we've been staring at the sun our whole lives. Can we take our focus on that, off of that, look at what's around us, because it's going to always be there, right? That thing's always there. And I think that understanding of like how all the other stuff influences the food more than it's just the food itself, they can start to recognize that might be the path that they need to take. And that's not true for everyone, right? And the intake is a lot of times where we figure out just where someone lies.
Right.
My favorite thing about Coach Catalyst.
My favorite thing about Coach Catalyst.
One of the things I love most about Coach Catalyst.
There are lots of things I love about Coach Catalyst.
And the reason why I love Coach Catalyst is
the
that
accountability off the back of that.
Is simplicity.
the support is amazing.
It allows me to give so much of me to my clients.
It's the drip feeding of content.
I can schedule lessons for my clients in advance.
Game changer for freeing up time.
It gives me my time back.
It's so simple and so easy.
Hi, I'm Kane, the founder of Coach Catalyst, the #1 accountability and communication software on the market today. We help coaches just like you keep their clients accountable and scale their business beyond what they've ever been able to do before. So if that sounds like something you want, let's take a look at how we can help. So Coach Catalyst was built on the 4 C's of coaching. Those are content, communication, community, and consistency. So for content, you need to go beyond just workouts and deliver the whole experience for the client so they get the results they deserve. For communication, you need to own your communication. If you don't own the communication, you don't own the client. So make sure you stop texting clients and use a centralized platform. For communities, get off of Facebook groups and take ownership over your social group with Coach Catalyst communities. And for consistency, the foundation of all results for clients, we took the best-selling book Atomic Habits and built all these fundamentals right within our app that's going to guarantee to get your clients the best results possible. If you want to start using the 4 C's with your clients, content, connection, community, and consistency, make sure you run over to Coach Catalyst and start a free trial today.
I like that. So let's go back to when you kind of time at Stronger You was done, because eventually you moved away from that company and moved into did you move into kind of your own private practice, your own coaching then, or was there another stop in between?
Yeah, so I slowly started integrating some private work with them. Well, I wanted to leave Stronger You Probably 2 years before I did, because I did feel that I wasn't going to really be able to grow what I was doing. So I started
Yep.
doing a little side project, and COVID hit, which was great because I got to dive into that and just did some free stuff, and then had a paid program. And then the reason I never left, though, is because Mike is such a dear friend. I actually didn't want to leave because I didn't want to think I was like rejecting him or something. And
Yep.
so we had a phone call the day that they sold to the Anytime Fitness or Lifetime Fitness.
Yep.
I think it was Anytime.
Yep.
The
Anytime.
day they sold, like on the call, Mike was texting me, looking at my face on the call. I was like, "You're leaving, aren't you?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm done." I was like, "That's all I needed. I just needed the out, and that's it."
Right.
So that day, I put my email list together and started working on an email blast, and yeah, and had a full book of clients within about a week. And so I finished out my Stronger You clients like over time, kind of moved to transition them to other coaches, et cetera. And then after I think I probably had about 8 or 9 weeks of kind of doing both, and then I was just full into my own practice.
So with your email list, had you been building that pretty much
Yeah.
since the beginning of your coaching career?
No. I actually hit a point where I decided I wanted to do. I had an idea of how that was important, and I was inspired by Seth Godin's email list, which is really he just sends like a little blurb, which is basically like a Facebook caption, right? Maybe 140, like really short, inspirational, like little stuff. So I made a deal with myself that I was going to write a blog post every day for a year, and I was going to send that out as an email. And so I did that for one full year, and just told people, and people would kind of tell their friends and be like, "Hey, you should get on his email list," whatever. And it just kind of built organically. And the beauty of that was, after that year, I now had 356 pieces of reusable content that I could use. And then I've added to that over the years, obviously. And now it's, I've got thousands of little blurb things I can send out.
Right.
But it wasn't kind of that traditional email list of like, because I wasn't selling anything. And Mark Fisher had said, I did a lot of Mark Fisher's courses, which I always loved. And he had said, he's like, just give everything away for free, because then when you go to ask people to buy, they're
Right.
almost like, "Yeah, thank you. You've given me so much. I don't even care what it is. Here, let's go."
What was your process around that? Because I mean, that's pretty ambitious. Like an email every day for 365 days, where you just like get up and write.
Yeah. So I've always been a writer. I'm a songwriter. It's something I've been doing my whole life. And I actually still do it to this day. So I would wake up, back then I didn't do morning. I was not a morning person, so I would do this before my workday. Now I go to jiu-jitsu in the morning. I get home around 7:30, and I write out, instead of my blog post, I write out my Instagram post for the day. And it takes about an hour. And I do that. And I'm, once I get done that, I get in my shower and start my day at 9. But that's still my process to this day, because I did it every day for a year, and it was just easy to continue. So it's literally part of my schedule. So at 7:30, I feed the dogs and I sit down, I put together my Instagram post for the day. Hopefully, if I have an early meeting, obviously it gets shifted off a little bit, but it's still a practice that every single day I make sure to write something. It might suck, it might be good, but at the end of that hour, I put it together, I hit send, and that's kind of the thing. And I think it teaches you, kind of like we talk to our clients all the time, is like, it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be the right time. But if you don't practice it, the only way you get better is to constantly do something.
Right.
And so that's still my process today.
And so for you, when you were doing this email a day, so you'd write the blog post and then basically just send it as an email, and you just want it to live in multiple places so that you could potentially have SEO and that stuff?
Yeah. Well, I'd literally just go in, copy, paste, put it into my email. And then the nice thing is the heading also was a hyperlink to the blog post. So if someone decided they wanted to go check out the blog post, they could go to my website and see that. And and it was exactly how Seth Godin's was set up. His was the exact same way. And so I was like, this guy knows a thing or two, so I might as well.
Were you doing the short one? Were you doing like just short little pieces?
Yeah, okay. I still do. I occasionally send a longer one, but basically they look the same way a caption for my Instagram might look.
Interesting.
And they're usually just inspirational things like, hey, like here's this thing. And I'll occasionally send a longer one, or I'll write a big blog post, or I'll do a YouTube video or a podcast, and I'll send that out to people. But for the most part, it's still, again, it's something that goes out at 6 a.m. every morning. Now I schedule them out. So Sunday morning, I set it up to go out every day at 6 a.m. But that way they can just wake up. And my kind of thought is like, to start their day, they're just getting a little something that will hopefully inspire them throughout the day. And encourage them to, engage in healthier habits and hopefully work towards bettering their lives.
So you're still sending out the email every day?
Yeah. So, well, Monday through Thursday usually, and then I'll send a something Friday might be a little bit different. Like I'll send out a promo for one of my friends' seminars or something like that kind of thing on a Friday.
So, okay, interesting. And so how are people getting on your email list?
Well, traditionally it was all word of mouth. It was all organic.
Really?
Yeah.
Were they just like forwarding it to someone and then they would be like, hey, can I get on the list? Or did you like have a button where they could go sign up?
Well, of course, on my website, I've got the lead gen stuff of I've done free guides and I'm the worst at them because my free guide has ended up being like a 50-page nutrition guide. It's way too much. I'm going to do a mini course now, but I'm always doing lead gen stuff. Recently, I've actually this last week I dove into doing some paid, or a couple weeks ago doing some paid ads.
Okay.
Which was really successful in adding people to my email list. It was relatively low ad spend. I got 150 new people on there, webinar thing, I'm going to do a mini course next. I think that's probably really mostly applicable to my people. But I think now you need a little bit more. Back then it was like people would just go into a Facebook group and be like, hey, you should check out this guy's blog, and someone would sign up and go in. I think now now it's like even the deliverables, I think kind of need to be a little more instant. Like it has to be like, they're going to click on the ad or whatever it is, and they get something right away. And then that kind of nurtures the lead into the email list.
Right.
But yeah, it was all organic for a long time, just because it just prolifically sending it out, people would share it and people would tell their friends and be like, yeah. And again, a lot of people can't afford to work with me. And so I want to be able to give them something that they can take. And that's kind of where it lives.
And so you were doing this while you were still at Stronger You and just kind of doing this every day, part of the schedule, show up, do the work, hit send. And now you said it's evolved to Instagram. So you're still doing the email stuff, but now you're doing the heavy lifting on Instagram?
Yeah. Yeah. Just because, again, for a lot of it is just, it's a place for me to share my ideas. And so regardless of the feedback I get from it or the return, I guess you might say, because I don't have a huge Instagram following. It's the bane of my existence. I feel like I've done everything and can't crack that ceiling. But it's fine because I have an engaged group of people that listen to me, and like in my email list, I get a lot of feedback from that. So it's the Instagram is kind of for the quick stuff, but it also gives me plenty of material because occasionally I'll take that and I'll have someone on Fiverr go and basically scrub through my Instagram and just pull the captions and turn those into basically emails that I can throw up on my blog or throw in as emails as well.
And do you come up with the idea day of, hey, this is what I'm feeling today? Or are you planning in advance?
My notes in my phone are out of control. I have every time I get an idea, it's voice note, it's type it out. It might just be a blurb. It might be, a fully fleshed out idea. Sometimes something hits me and I'm just okay, I got to write about this right now. But yeah, I mean, I just try to write stuff down, put it in my notes, have things ready that I can use at any time.
What do you just use the Notes app on an iPhone?
Oh yeah. So I have a couple I have one that's Instagram stuff, and so it'll automatically kind of filter it into there. But I'm always I'm always thinking. It's probably my biggest gift and detriment is I'm always think about this, and so putting those in, there's always something that comes up.
I'd recommend this to any coaches or even clinicians out there that are looking to build a business around a product that they already really believe in.
As a brand new user, just being sold on the streamline of being able to put everything in a centralized location. Anyone that is just fumbling with Google Sheets to Facebook messages, group messaging, text messaging.
For anybody that wants to be able to coach their clients, many times you use different tools and resources, and when you're trying to manage that, even on a Google Sheet or on regular technology, you're limited on on duplicating the data over and over.
I think if I'm going to, recommend the app for anyone, it's going to be myself. If I want to take my business to the next level, so definitely looking to do that in the near future here. Everybody can really benefit from it. I use it in the rehab sphere, but I also utilize it in the training thing. You can do the same thing with nutrition, right? There's so many uses for it.
For everybody, coaches, clinicians, anyone that kind of works in the industry, chiros, PTs, trainers.
This is one simple solution that we can create to all of our users and all our clients.
So if you want to create a way to systematize your business so you can scale, I have not seen a better product for that.
So you gave value for about a year. I mean, you were just like, boom, every day, giving value. And then when you decided to launch, what was the model that you launched with? Was it just like one-to-one coaching? Hey, do you want to work with me?
Yep.
Let's roll.
So I had initially during COVID did a group thing with some of my clients to kind of test out my model for kind of the emotional eating thing. So I basically just did all my clients. I was like, hey guys, all my stronger eating clients, if you want to jump on, I'm going to have a Zoom call every week on Wednesday at noon or whatever. We'll jump on a call and I'm going to present a topic, and it might be something about emotional regulation or distress tolerance or like the model that I had developed kind of over the last year and a half prior to that. And then when it came time to go one-to-one, I was lucky because I had worked with my friend Tim Arndt I spoke at his conference a couple times up in Spokane. His wife had been the email marketer for Bowflex. And so she helped me to kind of develop the email marketing template and she put me through the ringer, man. She was like, here's the emails you need. And I just remember spending one Friday and spent 15 hours writing emails. I mean, it was brutal.
This was to sell your program? Like
to sell the
sales
program,
emails?
Yeah. Yeah, the sales emails. And just like it was great because again, trial by fire, like jump in and just do it. And so I sent that out and it was the response was insane. And it was the first time that Stronger You, I saw some big months, don't get me wrong. But it was always like, oh, it's just because we had a sale and a lot of people signed up or whatever.
Right.
This is the first time on my own that it was like seeing a really big chunk of money come in, which is awesome. And then you go, oh shit, now I got to deliver.
Right.
Now I got to make this work.
Were you doing what was the model? Like, what were you charging at that time? Were you doing like paid in fulls? Were you charging a monthly?
I was charging a monthly recurring, and I think at the time I was only charging $150 a month.
Okay.
And yeah, it was I got a lot of clients real fast. I still have because I'm also one that I'm a big loyalty person. So anyone who signed up with me then that's still with me still pays the same. Not a great business model, but you know what? Like I thank those people helped me to start my practice, and so they're my people. And also, a lot of them are they're the lowest low maintenance. They're basically they're just I have you on retainer. That's it.
Right.
6 months could go by and I get a check in, and they're like, oh, text me hey, okay, I'm ready to do something. I'm like, okay, let's go. But yeah, so that was the model. It was just it was kind of the very reasonably priced, and I got clients and I had reps and I had people to talk about it, and it was Mike started Stronger You. He was charging $10 a week. So it's there, and again, everyone's like, oh, charge your worth. And I was like, that's fine. This is what I feel like, I'm going off on my own. I want to develop a clientele. I want to have people to work with. I enjoy the work. So that's fine. And at the time it was, again, what it was then when I first went into private practice, totally different than it is now. There was a lot of growing pains for sure. With technology and what kind of app am I going to use? How am I going to deliver these things? Like, what am I even delivering? Like, I've got all this material. Like, how do I get it to them in a manner that's cohesive?
Right. And I mean, what did that look like in the early days when you were just getting started? Did you have all that figured out? Or were you like, hey, I'm going to sell this thing and then I'm going to try and build the plane as it's falling off the cliff?
Yeah. I built it as it was falling off the cliff. And it required, one of the biggest things was I went through probably 3 software changes, right? Till I started working with you guys. And now I've got a really good solid, on Coach Catalyst, it really kind of does. And I think with Coach Catalyst, I think I might've looked at it initially, but I was so overwhelmed by I have to build this thing. I don't know how to do that. And then, after talking to you guys, it was actually quite easy. But now I have all that stuff. I've got tons of program, all the stuff in there. It's really easy to plug and play. So I went through a lot of different options kind of leading to that. And then,
I mean, really your value add was that we're probably going to do weekly calls, and then you pretty much have access to me whenever.
I think back then I wasn't doing weekly calls. I think I might have done an initial call and then was doing kind of check-ins as I had prior. The weekly call thing really developed, like, I was even just doing bi-weekly calls, and then now I've shifted to weekly calls just because it's what the clients I work with need initially starting off. And it's also, this is a selfish thing. I enjoy that. Like I would much rather have I feel like I get more accomplished in a half-hour call with someone than I can in 5 or 6 weeks of texting back and forth.
Right. So how many clients did you have, like, let's call it like 6 months into starting? So what was your client load like?
I think I had probably 60 clients.
Okay. And from a management load, how was 60 very doable? Was that like stressed out because there's a lot to do, or how did that fit?
No, like having a heavy client load is never the stress for me. The stress for me is always in the marketing and all the business, just doing my accounting. Like that's the stress for me. Like the client load is never the thing. Because, and especially now, because again, as we kind of talked about earlier, I schedule, like it's just scheduling, and it's like I know what my week looks like. And then like managing. Like, again, the clientele I work with is very much like me. They don't reach out unnecessarily. Like, I'll go on vacation. I'll be like, hey, I'm going to be in Europe. I'm available. Message me. And like, generally the messages I get are, I'm not going to bother you on vacation. Have fun. We'll talk when you get back.
Right. Yeah, that's super nice. So when you were moving through, like 150, you're not charging 150 a month anymore.
No.
So
no.
when you made your first kind of price change, how did you do that? Because I think that's always a hot topic for coaches. It's like, how do I change my prices? Was it just the next person that got on the phone? It was $200.
Yep. Yeah, it was. It was actually, that's exactly what it was. It was $200, and then I think then it went to $250, and then it doubled again, and then depending on programs, there's times it doubles from that. And yeah, it's scary, but if you're confident in what you provide and you know that what you provide is helpful and worth it. And I also think about it from my own person. I was talking to someone the other day, and in coaching, mentoring, et cetera, I spend between $25,000 and $30,000 a year. And I don't think that's actually even counting conferences and things I go to. So you can probably jump that up to maybe 40 grand a year. So I value it so I know that I value it to such an extent that those people can also value it to that extent.
And so did you stay with that? I mean, you've pretty much stayed with the one-to-one model for most of your, and I know you started doing a group thing very recently, but you've been with the one-to-one for pretty much the entire time.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I enjoy. Right. And I've always said, like, people talk about, I want to, fire, financial independence, retire early.
Yeah.
I don't ever see myself retiring from having some clients in this capacity. Like, that's something I want to do into older age.
Right.
I'm already beach. So that's always going to be the base of my model. Now, yes, I started adding a group program, but again, that was almost necessitated by the raising of my prices for one-to-one, because I still wanted to be able to offer help to people that couldn't afford it, maybe. And the next step is going to be more self-paced courses, some work for coaches that are interested in getting into this, and things that aren't as that one-to-one model. But I really do believe that really understanding the one-to-one model in some capacity is really important in order to do these other things.
Well, you get the reps, right? You just get the reps with single individuals that allows you to help that one person find similarities, find commonalities that then allow you to kind of develop a group program, because you've had enough reps over a wide enough people that kind of all at least fit in the same probably bucket or client avatar.
Yeah. And that's that, we're talking about niche, like understanding the things that these people do have. Again, Mark Fisher quote, I love this one. He said, we're all special snowflakes, but we melt the same.
That's a good one.
And it's like, yeah, everyone is unique, but at the end of the day, most of the issues that people have are common.
Right. And they at least fall into buckets, right? Because the person that you're attracting now probably is understands that they're dealing with some emotional eating type, because that's who you talk. That's what you talk about. It's who you attract. And so, I mean, throughout this entire time, was the marketing just kind of organic? I mean, you're doing the Instagram posts, you're still doing the emails. Were there any other kind of marketing fishing poles out there that you were getting clients from?
I mean, most of my client acquisition happens in email. I mean, that's the thing I'll always go back to, is like the relationship I've developed in email is much higher. Obviously, referrals are really my biggest, like that's always been my bread and butter, is just people referring their friends.
And do you do anything? Do you do anything to like bring on referrals or remind people about referrals, or is it just kind of happening organically?
It's all happened organically, which is something that honestly, like that's something I'm doing now, is because I'm starting to ask for testimonials. Now, one of the things is because the way I work, I think consider what I do almost like nutritional counseling. And so there's a little like ethical thing. So like I try not to get testimonials from people until after we're done working together. There's some people that I'm like, okay with being like, hey, would you mind a testimonial while we're together? But one of the things I really love to do is to reach out to ex-clients and ask for testimonials 6-12 months later, because my goal is to provide a service that extends far beyond our work together, and to show that like the goal of this is sustainability, and it's not about the 12-week change. I don't use transformation photos. Like just that's a personal like kind of ethical issue for me. I'm not telling anyone else to have those same. It's just my thing. And it doesn't really jive with the clients I work with in their state. So that's most of it. Now it is something I have thought about, because offering some kind of, especially because of what I do, a lot of times people aren't super comfortable talking necessarily to their friends about it, because a lot of it's kind of like private issues and things. But a lot of them do have friends that could benefit from it. And so, that is something that's kind of my like next thing to work on, outside of all these courses and things that I'm putting together.
As a coach that runs challenges, I needed my life back. I had stuff all over the place. A Facebook group for community interaction, Google Sheets for check-ins and measurements, and was drowning in email communication. As my challenges grew past just a handful of people, I started to notice clients were falling through the cracks. I began researching virtual assistants because I just couldn't manage it all. And truthfully, the client experience was going down the drain. Luckily, a friend recommended Coach Catalyst and just told me to trust her. I'm sure glad I did. Now I can run my challenges with 2 or 200 clients with just a few clicks. The lessons get delivered on the right days, the accountability happens automatically, and most importantly, the communication is all in one spot. I even created 2 new challenges from the Coach Catalyst library. Best part, didn't have to change a thing. I used to spend 15 minutes just trying to log into all the apps I needed. Now I log in and my dashboard tells me who needs a shout out and who needs a kick in the butt in about 15 seconds. I feel like a huge weight is lifted off of my shoulders. I can finally spend my time coaching again instead of worrying about all the admin work. Do your brain a favor and get Coach Catalyst.
So you've kind of mentioned it a few times, like you're a practitioner, right? You want to do the work with the people. So how do you balance this? Because you don't have a large team. And so like, how do you balance this? Like, I need to do the business side of things. I need to do the accounting. I need to do the marketing. I need to do all of this stuff in order to probably continue doing being the operator and the practitioner. Like, how do you balance that? Is it just like, I'm going to put my head down and make this stuff happen, or?
Mostly through procrastination. I work really well under pressure, so I just wait. And like honestly, it's really outsourcing, right? Like meeting with all you guys. I meet with Coach Cab. I have another guy who's helping me with like doing ads. I'm never going to enjoy that stuff. And one of the things I work with clients on early on is identifying your strengths. And understanding that you could get good at the things you don't enjoy, but you're still going to be miserable doing them. So if there's a way to outsource that and speed up the process and get better at the things that you can get better, right? Like I'm always going to create the content, right? And so that's fine, but someone else can take it and put it in a format that is sellable, that people are going to enjoy, or they can guide me in the right direction, or they can help me with the copy that I'm already writing because I'm too in it. I can't often see that it needs to be simpler. Again, the people that spoke at Coach Catalyst, I've worked with Lance Pincock to help me with writing some copy. Obviously I work with Cav, all the time. I'm in his mastermind, and that helps me. And it helps me to, for me, it has to be like a values-driven, ethics-driven marketing. And so as long as I'm kind of in line with my values, and there's been times when I've kind of stepped outside that and tried to do things that other people do, and it's backfired. And I've learned that I just have to do me and be in like congruence with who I am, and it works out fine.
And for you, how many people do you have? One other coach that's working with you?
I have one other coach.
So it's really just you and the other coach, right?
Yep.
When did you bring on the other coach?
Last year was when we had our first conversation. He's a good friend of mine. We align with that. We're actually writing a book together. We've written a book together. So we've been friends for a long time. But he was the only person that I've met that really could synthesize my model and actually utilized it in his own pursuits. He did in sports performance and took the things that I work with people on in emotional eating and took it to win a jiu-jitsu world championship. And it was like, dude, you put this thing into action in a totally different aspect. You understand it in a way and are able to deliver it in another way. And we just I was like, hey, I don't know. And he's like, oh yeah, actually this would be great. And so we've been working together in that capacity now for like a year, and have some cool things that we're working on kind of as a team rather than, kind of as my coach.
Do you enjoy that now, having another person that's kind of part of the business, or does that add another stressor of, okay, here's potentially another mouth to feed?
It's actually kind of a driver, right? Because I want to also get him busier, right? I also want to be able to provide clients for him. It also gives me a chance to offload a lower ticket offer, right? I can do so those kind of weekly check-in clients that doesn't really drive me, right? That's perfect because he does like that. And he was always a sounding board anyways. He was always someone that I was always bouncing ideas off of. So now it's just I have that collaboration. So I don't know how I would approach it, from a managerial standpoint of having a team or a staff of 10 people. I don't know that is something I would really enjoy, because I've seen it in action. I was again seeing Mike, it's a different thing, right? It's a different thing. I guess technically I am an entrepreneur by starting a business, but that's not my drive. I'm not driven by I don't love the business stuff. It's cool. It's got there's the stuff behind it, but if you give me a choice to read Sapolsky or to read, a business book, I'm going to read Sapolsky. That's what drives me.
Which is I think a really important thing to kind of reiterate, because a lot of coaches, I think, sometimes always think bigger is better. And so many times bigger means more team members, which I think you're a great example of. You've been able to build a very successful business by serving a very specific person, right? You have a pretty defined niche, right? And gotten very good at serving and solving the problems for those people. And you've just kind of continually raised your rates. And so as your skill set has up leveled, you've kind of continued to keep your rates in accordance with that, which allows you to build a more profitable, better business, still serve people at a really high level, but not feel like, man, I'm doing all of this work and I'm not really getting anything in return.
Yeah. And again, the other thing you have to think about too when you grow a team is your profit margins also change. There's plenty of people out there who have, I know people in other industries who have 7, 8-figure businesses that are bringing home a 6-figure paycheck and a low 6-figure paycheck. And that's cool. It's plenty of money to live on, but that's a lot of work,
right,
to maintain a business like that. And you're pumping a lot of money out. And if things go south, there's a lot bigger risk there. For me, if things go south, I'll just go drive an Uber or something. It's there's no huge infrastructure to collapse upon me.
Right.
That then I have to start, worrying about taking out loans or trying to cover, costs, whatever it looks like, payroll, whatever.
So just to give some kind of context on the growth, so you started at $150 a month with one-to-one coaching. Where are you at now?
My top package is $1,000 a month, and it's a 6-month package. My more normal one is $500 a month, and then we do have a tier that, I would ideally love for people to be like, hey, okay, I can drop down to this, lower tier now. Most people stay with it because they really do enjoy the closer interactions. They enjoy the kind of community and they get something out of it. And like I tell them, I was like, my goal for you is for you to want to work with me, not to need to work with me.
Right.
And so if you want to, awesome. Like, does it make your life better? Awesome. But I don't want you to feel like your life is going to fall apart without me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just looking at those numbers, it's almost a 10x change from, and we're only talking like 3-4 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I really didn't completely cut off from Stronger You until I believe it was April of 2022, maybe.
Yeah. Cause I mean, they sold right before COVID, I think.
No, they sold
right
after COVID because I had moved to because I was living in New York still. I moved to Charleston, and the call happened when I was here, and I didn't move here until November of 2021.
Okay.
So it was 2022. Right. So yeah, I mean, 2.5 years.
The Super Coach Summit by Coach Catalyst is.
The Super Coach Summit by Coach Catalyst is.
The Super Coach Summit by Coach Catalyst is.
The Super Coach Summit by Coach Catalyst is room for opportunity.
It's badass.
It's fucking awesome.
Over-delivered. They talked about it, and they definitely did it.
Is amazing. It's just been invigorating.
Is exemplary. It's phenomenal, and just a great time with great people. And you feel like in Ohana, you feel like a family.
It's unreal.
Is awesome. What will help separate the 1% from the 99% is a really well thought out event, well conceived, well planned, and well executed.
It's such an amazing event to be at in order to grow your business and network with other professionals.
It is top tier. It's one of the best I've been to in the business. It's been unbelievable, and I'm just excited to finish out the day here and keep making connections.
It's an event that you will be very happy that you have attended because next year is going to be even better than this one.
It is freaking badass. If you're not here, you're missing out. See you next year.
Yeah. So, I mean, 2.5 years. And so, I mean, I think and really what I'm trying to kind of pull out for the listeners is you can make a lot of progress very quickly in a short period of time. And granted, you didn't just get into coaching 2 years ago, you've been doing this for a decade and you've been building those skills. But once you find your stride, right? You found the people that you could help at a really, really deep level. They had a strong enough pain where they're willing to pay more money to help get someone solve that pain for them. Right. And then you just really care deeply about it. And you're able to just, people are still happy to pay $1,000 a month because you're solving their problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, the people that pay the $1,000 a month are people that it doesn't matter what it is. They are of a financial status and whatever. They want the best. So I just offer them that. Most people, but again, $1,000 comes with a month comes with what do you need? That's basically what it is. It's what is it? Whatever you need me to call your assistant and place an order with the food delivery people. Cool, done.
Right.
You want me to find you a personal trainer when you travel out of town for a month? Done. I'll find. You need a new therapist. You need a new physical therapist. I'll find you somebody. I got you. Done.
Right. But the cool thing is when you serve those types of people and are able to charge those types of prices, you can offer a lot for a low cost or for free for the people that maybe can't afford that. It just gives you way more freedom than trying to play the really, really low ticket game and try to go for volume and that kind of stuff. I've always been of the belief of go serve people that are willing to spend money on something and make a great business out of it, and then just give everything else away for free. And people can go and implement on their own or with limited guidance.
Yeah, and I think you had an email or an Instagram post or whatever that was kind of talking about the future of what you see the future as, and that being kind of, and I agree because I think the world is becoming so, I guess, impersonal. Like everything is like online, and so like having that personal touch, that boutique kind of experience, is what people are really they want. They want connection, because we all feel more and more disconnected.
I think that's only going to accelerate now with AI.
Mhm.
Like I
100%.
was reading some stuff on AI where just like the consumer doesn't really trust much of anything anymore.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, like who created this? Like, is this even a real person? Yada, yada, yada. And so the more personal you get, the more someone learns that they're a real person, they're live, they're in person, they're all of those things, I think are going to become a premium over the next, 5 years. And the people that are willing to put in that work, because it is a little bit more work to show up over and over again, like live in person, than just standing behind a keyboard or making an Instagram post or things like that. And so those people that are willing to put in the work, I think, are going to be ahead at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it's emotionally taxing. Like you cannot take nearly as many clients. Like now that I'm at this, every week calls, I about 30 clients is about the most I can really do, because I do half-hour calls every week. So you're talking about 15 hours of calls a week. And that doesn't sound like much, but with the topics we're dealing with, and I have to show up for every single person with that same level. I have to be there 100%. There's no like kind of half-assing it with that. But then I can use that other time for those other things. Like you said, like with my group program and things that are a little bit lower stress, a little bit lower tier involvement. But I, also, and as someone that I use AI a lot, that's my number one brainstorming tool. I love it. Like I'll just be like, hey, what do you think about this?
Right.
When it gets to know you, it's pretty powerful. So yeah, if you're playing that low ticket, high volume game, I think the people that are doing that are going to lose in the end, because AI I don't know if I would say scary, but it's impressive.
It's pretty crazy. Are there any tools that you like from a brainstorming standpoint, or is it just kind of like the Chat GPT of the world?
I mean, other people, like phone calls. I'm one that like, I tell fitness professionals all the time, like somebody like, hey, like, can we get on a call? And they're like always like, yeah, I mean, like, and I'll pay you. I'm like, no, let's talk. Like this is good for me as it is for you. Like, let's talk. I love like at Coach Catalyst Summit, like just sitting and talking with other professionals, that interaction of what other people are doing. Even like calls with, clarity calls with potential clients, like learning what people's struggles are. But yeah, like, I mean, when it's like me in my head, like getting in with Chat GPT is great, because because I'll be like, okay, if I'm working with these clients, and I wanted to design, a mini course, like what would be the best things to focus on? Ooh, how do you think it would affect? Okay, what about this? What about that? Ooh, I like this title. What if we added this? And it's like, you have like 10, 15 options in front of you.
Right.
And you kind of choose your own adventure of like, ooh, let me take a bit of that and a bit of that. What do you think about that? And then so it's just doing that computational stuff that our brains do, but on a much faster and more efficient level. And so I think it's great. I would say like, don't go into it thinking that it's going to be something that's going to, write everything for you, because it's not good like that. It's more of like, how can you get feedback from it and then develop your own stuff.
Yeah, I think it's awesome for that kind of stuff. Is there anything that you would, knowing that what you know now, and Jeb from 5 years ago, is there any advice that you would impart to a younger version of yourself, or a younger coach version of yourself?
Just be really clear about your values and stick to them. Because I have found that every time I have more so gotten off track, it's because I've been blinded by the lights, maybe like the flashy marketing or the thing that like, the 7-figure ticket funnel, whatever it is. And then like trying to adopt that person's tactics, and it feels gross. And I think my clients, my potential clients, saw through it and were like, that's not the Jeb that we know. That doesn't sound right. And it's easy to get kind of blinded by that, but understand where your values sit and follow that. 100%.
So from defining your values, do you have any strategies to help someone do that? Or is it more just kind of what feels right for you?
I mean, that's like literally my intake is working with people on that. I start off with something called viacharacter.org, which is a free strength finder thing. It's, if you've ever done any kind of HR things, they always have these strength finders. It's viacharacter.org.
Okay.
And it's free. It's a little free survey. They send you a little PDF, but it tells you your strengths. And you can kind of categorize those, and each of those strengths kind of falls under like a certain type of value. And when you look at your strengths, then you can start, you can pull up a little list of values on I think James Clear probably has one on his website just to give you some thinking ideas. But I think really just kind of clarifying what things are most important to you, and in the context of life, not in business and food, just like your life, what is most important to you? And also revisiting that every, 6 months or so, because those things do change, as you grow. Especially as a guy, I'm 46 now, like my values are very similar, but my ideas of what's really important in my life are very different. And I think that it should change, right? I think Professor Scott Galloway has a great thing he says of like, in your 20s and 30s, you got to just like work, you got to grind, you got to kind of take. And then when you start to get in your 40s, when you get in the latter part of your career, it's really important to start giving. Because once you get to the point where you have a lot of this stuff that you've gathered, this information, this knowledge, this wisdom, if you don't start giving it back, you're not going to have that purpose anymore. And I'm in that phase of kind of giving back now, and whether that be like starting to do some more education for coaches, trying to like help other coaches to not develop in business, because that's not at all my niche, but to help in this type of coaching, of a coaching that is a little bit more esoteric.
I mean, it is and it isn't, right? Like, you didn't get into this because of the business. You've built a great business because you've built a great product.
Yeah.
Right. The product has helped you build a great business.
I'm never going to be the guy that's going to be like, hey, how do I scale? I'm going to go, I don't know, man. Like, if you want to be a solopreneur and you want to like have a practice, and that's why I call it a practice, is because I think of myself as, the psychologist down the street, or the lawyer who's got his own private practice. Like, I'm not a DLA Piper, like defending white collar criminals or something. I'm the mom and pop shop. But I make a great living, and I'm happy, and I can ramp it up or ramp it down. Kind of when I want to. And that it just requires like, how much time and energy am I willing to spend in this phase?
Right. Which I think for the vast majority of coaches who really enjoy being practitioners and operators, it's a really good model. Make a great living. You have a lot of flexibility and say over how you're building something, and you can build it around a lifestyle, and you can have a great lifestyle to beat. So it's a good model. I like
but
it.
if you don't love it, don't do it, because it's not like a 9 to 5. You don't get, like, I might close my laptop, but it doesn't stop. It's always going, and you're always thinking about it. So you got to love it.
Right. Which, when you do like putting in some extra hours here and there and like doing some time on the weekends, it doesn't seem like a big deal.
No, it's fun.
I love it. Right.
Yeah,
exactly. I love it. Cool, man. Well, let's kind of wrap this thing up with some rapid fire. Did you look at the questions before this by chance?
I looked at it. Yeah, I looked at a few of them.
All right. So you've got a little bit of a head start on them. That's all right. Taco, burrito, or quesadilla? Which one we choose?
Gotta go burrito.
Okay. Are you just like the volume? Are you a volume guy?
Yeah, it's the volume. It's the volume. I prefer tacos, but I'm lazy, so I can take all of my meal prep and stuff it into a giant burrito shell and eat it in one take.
I like that. My kind of guy. All right. Is anything you purchased or a book that you have read under $100 that you feel like has had profound impact on you?
I would say the book that had probably the most profound impact on me recently. I gotta say either I think it's called The Death of Ritual by Byung-Chul Han, or Awareness by Anthony DeMello, both philosophy books. But then also my capo for my guitar, because I play guitar, and my old capo broke, and I can change the fretboard with that, and it was like $12.
That's I know nothing about guitar, so everything you just said, I was like, "Yep, awesome." Cool.
Okay, sounds good.
That sounds like that's awesome. All right, if you could, if you came back as an animal, or if you're reincarnated as an animal based upon your personality, what are you coming back as?
Say probably like a boa constrictor.
That's a first. I need an explanation.
Yeah. Because, at first, I'm just kind of there. And then before you know it, I'm just going to smother you and just overtake everything. It's probably the jiu-jitsu thing is probably part of that. But,
Okay.
it's like that kind of symbiosis thing.
Right. I like it. I like it. All right. Last one. If you could have dinner with anyone on the planet, past or present, who do you want to break bread with?
This is actually when I read this and I thought about it, and it's so hard. And so I'm just going to like kind of what popped in my head, probably because we were just talking about it. I got to say, like, especially living like Robert Sapolsky. I mean, the guy's brain, if you haven't read Behave, I don't know that anyone actually wants to because it is a brutal read. But the guy is just, I don't know, he's fascinating. Either him or Sam Harris, one of the two. I'm really into the whole like idea, the concept of free will and whether it exists, and both these guys examine that pretty heavily. So I would love to just sit and just figure out where they're coming from with it.
I love it. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for hanging out and teaching us a little bit about what you do. And yeah, man, really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate being here.
It's awesome. If people want to find out a little bit more about you, what you've got going on, where on the internet do you live?
My website is www.foodonthemind.com, and my Instagram is just Jeb Stuart Johnston. That's Stuart and Johnston with a T. Yeah, and I'm there, and that's mostly it.
Cool. I love it. All right, man. Thanks for coming on.
Good to see you.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Coach Catalyst podcast. If you are a coach looking to do more for your clients than just workouts, give Coach Catalyst a test drive. Try it for 14 days. Jump on call with your personal strategy coach, Ashley, and see how easy technology can be, all for free. Tell them Trevor sent you. Until next time, keep changing lives.